I hate to start off this episode on a sad note, but this past weekend, we lost a very dear friend to the show and the cryptic games community as a whole. Mark Valentine, better known as H2O Rat, or That Video Guy, passed away on Saturday. He was a friend of the show, a friend of the community as a whole, a Foundry author, and above all that, a kind, dedicated, and talented human being. As he was our first guest, it seems only fitting that we dedicate this episode to his memory. We'll miss you, Mark.
And so I told the quartermaster point blank, would it be so hard to replicate a good foam mattress for once? And would you believe that he actually told me that we're on? And good evening, gentle beings. It's a quiet news cycle in Star Trek Online lately. Foundry Spotlight gets released. Dan Stahl talks Voyager and more in the news. Tonight's news sponsored by Ryzen Motors. Ryzen Motors, come for the hover pack and stay for the experience, because it's the off-season and they need the tourists. And tonight we lead off with the official release of Foundry Challenge 7 winner as a Spotlight, Alpha Flight by Rimert Mac. It now qualifies for the Spotlight rewards and is spent for a small craft, so plan accordingly. Additionally, Salvage by Shamrock Duck was released for the Klingons. This is a level 41 plus mission. Go forth and play and enjoy. Dan Stahl talks Voyager. There's a possibility that we will see more than the Voth coming to the game with Season 8. We will continue to watch and wait and see what more from Voyager comes to our screens and to the Foundry. V. Silverwings guest blogs on the no-win scenario. In this blog, he details tips and tricks and loadouts to help beat the unbeatable scenario. Mind Projects 5 and 6 released. These projects add to the interior and exterior appearance of your minds. Project 5 adds moving dilithium to the internal, whereas Project 6 adds more traffic to the outside of your station. And finally, Priority 1 and Massively and the G&T show all continued their recaps of Star Trek Las Vegas with supplementals and interviews with various Star Trek Online developers. In addition to this, Mog Nation interviewed Dan Stahl, and I'm being told that as a late-breaking story, there have apparently been some stealth additions to the Foundry. I don't have a lot of details on this at the moment, and we'll have to monitor this, but it seems that at least there's now a triggerable dialogue with objects ability that has been put in. I will have to get with our researchers to find out more for this for next time. Possible supplementals coming up in PrimetimeUGC. And that is the news. Good night and good luck, everyone.
Welcome to Kirk's Fat Assets. In this edition, I'll be counting down the top 10 assets of Starbase 39 in the hopes of seeing them added to the Foundry. I'll pretend like someone at Cryptic is watching.
Number 10.
This plant. Yeah, we have some other plants and pots. I like this little guy. It's not a big deal, but adding plants really spruces up a custom set, so the more interior plants, the better.
Number 9.
These chairs. We have a red one that kind of looks dull and frumpy. These guys seem nice, clean, and very Federation. Please add.
Number 8.
The wall panel. We'd use it all over the place, from using a more realistic view screen to adding space art to walls. It's cool, and I like it.
Number 7.
This light. It's neat and very distinctive. It's also generic enough to be quite versatile. I can see us using it for all kinds of sets.
Number 6.
The railings with the glass panels. Using the windows we have are such a pain. These railings would be used to add windows and all kinds of rails to platforms. It would be a really useful addition.
Number 5.
The kits. We need props like this so that we can send players on fetch quests to gather data, pick up medkits, place objects on table, and gather clues. Please add.
Number 4.
This floor. I am sick of building starship interior floors out of stone. Cryptic. Do you like my starship interior made of stone? I don't. It's stupid. I need a carpet.
Number 3.
The shelf with all the goodies. Again, we need a prop like this for fetch quests and whatnot. Plus, it would add more guns to the Foundry.
Number 2.
This shelf, for the same reasons. It would give us many ways to use one prop for tons of different reasons.
Number 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1.
And the number one prop is the explosive charges. We have explosions. We use triggers to make things go boom. Yet in order to put a spatial charge in, we have to hide an enormous crate inside a wall or something. That's dumb. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my picks. Stay tuned for the rest of the show.
One of the things, many complaints I keep seeing on the Foundry forums is about a perceived lack of communication between the Foundry development team and the forums. Are there any plans to address this, or do you see a perceived lack of communication on your end as well?
I do not perceive a lack of communication on my end. Although I am not as active as I'd like to be in the forums, the team and I, we look at the forums regularly, and I think I've posted a few times this last week and over the weekend. We are the Foundry team is absolutely passionate and care so much about the not just the tool set but the content that's being made and the authors that are making it. We take it really personally when something goes down. So all team on deck on the weekend, and we're trying to figure out what was happening. And we thought it was and we try to communicate that as much as possible. A lot of that comes through me, just because if there's anything angry happening in a forum, the team's working like crazy. So, like I said, I'll take the blows or anybody, calling me names. But, while we don't communicate directly with a crazy amount, with the community, we try to make sure that people know what's happening if something goes wrong. It's sort of weird, right? You really don't need to, the expectation isn't that you communicate all the time if everything's hunky-dory. But if something goes wrong, everybody likes to know what's happening, and that's something that I don't think that we have a lack of. If something goes wrong, there's community messaging, and then we'll hop on the forums. If something is happening on the forums, the team and we're on the forums regularly, looking through the threads and post to see what the issues are. This morning it was funny to see that I was presented with a list of issues. Hey, this is what I've collected from the weekend from people. People were saying things about this is what's happening in the Foundry. Funny only because I was going to one of the artists' desks and I was saying, hey, I just sent you a list of all of the things that I found. And he's like, that's amazing. Here's my list. And so we put that list together and he's like, great, okay, so weird green torches not being green anymore, fixed. Weird boat thing, fixed. So we went down the list. So while weird...
I love that those are the names that you put to them. And I can totally imagine that being true. Weird boat thing, weird green thing.
Yeah, well, you got to keep it light, right? The funny thing is that it's sort of, you get into a point where, obviously, the artists know all of the assets, so, when you say boat thing, they're thinking, Skyhold _ just destroyed _pirate _boat 01. And then boop, 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 and then searching for the file or whatever.
I know some authors that are like that. You say rope. Oh, it's rope. That word. Blah, blah, blah. I can't remember the names. I know what they look like, but I can't remember the names.
Yeah, the name of the map that went all crazy and furry is actually called empty _farmland 01. I'm like, no, it's not. It is detailed. No, what are you talking about? I know that is not a farmland. They're like, oh, it's farmland 01, all right. And sure enough, that's fun.
Yeah, I remember that being mentioned on the forums today.
Yes, yeah, I saw that as well. This is what it's called. I'm worried. Have they fixed the wrong map?
Yeah. Funny. So oddly enough, I know we're talking about something serious about communication, but that was so weird. We had a map that was generated in an old Star Trek manner.
Oh, the Genesis system.
Yeah, so it was a really old Genesis map that we made. So what happened was the tree had information about Genesis, and so when it tried to Genesis itself, it said, all my buddies can be as close as they want to me, as opposed to all my buddies need to be 20 feet from me. And that's what it did. And it only happens at runtime because it's part of the Genesis system. So it's this really old Genesis map. So that's what happened with that tree.
Wow. That is really, really old.
Yeah, and so, we're looking at it, we're like, oh my goodness. It's this and two other maps that we just found it, right? And it was in the Genesis folder. It's like, hey, wow, fancy that.
That's a blast from the past.
Right. So we found the other maps, and they did not have anything. Fortunately, they were just empty maps that were going to be used as templates, so they didn't have any objects in them. But anyways, I thought that was funny. I was like, wow, we actually used to create maps that way. So there was that. But anyways, as far as the communication goes, I know that it gets really frustrating, and while a lot of the direct communication may feel like it lacks at times, it's because that we're probably running crazy fire drills behind the scenes here trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Sometimes we falter a little bit, but it's not because we don't care. And then as soon as we get a chance to get a breather, usually it's the team, hey, did you hop on the forums and tell them, hey, you should tell them this. Oh, hey, by the way, I figured out what the thing is. It looks like it's going to be this long before we'll have that fixed. And so, I try to say that as much as possible, but in a way that isn't promising anything. Like, in 5 minutes it's going to be turned on. Although I know that internally the messaging is probably something like, we are currently working on the issue and we're aware of it, and we'll have it up to you as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then I let the community people be heroes that say, hey, it's all on, everybody.
We just have a couple more questions on our
Absolutely.
list, and then we'll hand it over to you, I'm sure. We talked about it a little bit before, was in regards to the rating system and searching and things, but there's this ongoing struggle between, we'll class them grinders and story missions, but then there's a whole range of things within those and so on and so forth. Just black and white, say grinders and stories. Do you have any plans or ideas or anything on how to separate them? So I suppose tagging will help with that, I'm sure. But even then, you may end up with a load of one type of thing with one tag appearing at the top, but then it's never mind.
It's really difficult. Well, what happens is that what I think will happen, and this is something we'll watch. I think tags will help. I think if we get a recommendation system in, that will help as well. But it is up to some degree, it is up to the community to come to terms, or rather, to use the tools that they have to sort of help more than we can, right? I don't want to put stringent or strict rules on what things are called and where they come up or how we classify them, because every time we sit and think about it, we have these internal dialogues as well, as where there is a perfectly good reason why, wave after wave after wave of goblins fall into that pit and die. Because it makes sense, because I played it and this story makes sense, or, or there's a reason why it's just a field of, whatever, were-rats, because this is whatever. In the story it says this is where the were-rats hang out at the full moon and they all just hang out. Or whatever. I don't think that it's the developer should say, and I don't think I'll even say me, I don't think that I can say what is and isn't a type of mission, right? So I would like to give the tools out to the community, and if they arrive at a place where a single tag is what this type of quest is, and everything that is that type get that tag, then it becomes part of just the awareness. It becomes the community, right? And they own it, and I think that is really powerful. Yeah. And it's way better and more concrete than anything that we could ever do. Because, like I said, with the whole, the different investments and qualifying things, it's the same problem. If we start qualifying things as one thing or another, and if the community doesn't agree, then the system breaks down. The only thing that we can all agree on is when the community says, this is an exploit. I will not disagree with you. There are missions that are classified in a certain way, and the community says, please, you got to remove these things. This is a serious problem. We look at those things, and we've been very, very hardcore on things that are exploitive or pushing the boundaries of things and types of content that we don't think fit in Neverwinter Foundry. And we're going to continue to be on top of that. Now, there's an investigation period, and we look at things, and things get reported. There's also tools in the community's hand, right? Reporting things as exploit missions gets that stuff up in a queue and up to CS, and there's temp bans and all that stuff. There is a process for all of that, but that's definitely something that is community driven, right? I'll play something, and if I see it as an exploit, I'll mention it, and I'll kick it over to the exploit team, and I'll say, hey guys, what do you think about this? It kind of looks and feels like an exploit. And this is more than I'll just to be clear, I'm classifying that a little bit different than I am sort of grinders, right?
Yeah. No. Grinders are different. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Right.
Grinders are real missions. Grinders are real quests. Story are real quests, and then exploits are exploitative.
Definitely. So, but I think that things like story and grinders, that's why we have sort of RP and story, and then we have combat heavy, and then I didn't want to put achievements as one of the tags because it kind of has a negative connotation,
Yeah. That comes. It's like that border between grind and exploits that. We certainly had a period where a lot of people were going, oh no, they're playing these missions and it's so because they're killing loads of things and then they're just getting achievements and this shouldn't be right. Blah, 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 blah. I don't personally. I don't see a huge issue with that because it can be very, very annoying to go through and kill 1,000, 2,000, whatever. Because I suppose in the same way, you still have to fight them all. You still have to kill them all. It's just you're doing it without having to sort of repeat a long and tedious other part of a quest. Not that I'm saying cryptic missions are long and tedious. I'm just saying I'll stop digging.
There are plenty of long and tedious quests.
It's getting like you have to walk this far to then kill that person, as opposed to no, you can just stand here and then you can go and kill them there, and there.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
I would definitely want to put. I think putting more power in the community's hands to find, qualify, and organize is something that I would lean heavier towards than us coming up with a rule set that then everybody has a different opinion about and a different understanding of, and then ultimately just looks broken. Because you can definitely say like, "Oh my goodness, I don't agree with this," and everybody could say, "Yeah, but the community voted." Oh, okay, well that's cool. Right, as opposed to, I don't agree with this. This is completely broken. Like, yeah, I know those devs did that. Like, oh man, devs.
No, it makes sense. It really does. At least once it's explained. Okay, then I think we've just got one question left, which has probably been far too much of a build-up to it. But what's the relationship between core team and you and everything else, and the Foundry in Star Trek Online, and who's responsible for bug fixes? Is it the core team, or is it then delegated to, for instance, Neverwinter or Star Trek Online bugs? And then is it who's in charge of porting and that sort of stuff? And what's going to happen?
It's everybody that knows anything about the Foundry is always and forever will be on the hook. It's plain and very straightforward. I will, instead of core, I'll say it's Star Trek. And then there's Neverwinter Foundry and Star Trek Foundry. Those two groups are not separate and discrete assets. And the work done on both of those things are not necessarily completely separated and discrete. So the work that we're doing for Neverwinter absolutely can be ported back. It's just a matter of what Star Trek, the community, the team, what they want and what their plans are for the Foundry. There are definitely limitations. I'm sorry, there are definitely things that are easier than others. So, for instance, if porting back the Neverwinter editor, that would be monumental. Porting back, and when I say porting back, really, I just mean checking into one branch or the other. They're not so separate that it's this horrible thing.
But yes, we've at least we've had devs on the show before to explain the whole branching thing to us.
Right. So what we had done with Neverwinter was basically what was happening is the Foundry shared all of the same code, and we started making really big changes in the Foundry for Neverwinter, and that was what we were seeing was it was rippling through Star Trek and really ruining a lot of things. it would get Star Trek would pick up features that then didn't have UI and then would just be broken, and then we'd make changes to how the UI was going to be drawn, and that just all of a sudden started affecting Star Trek. Mm-hmm. Obviously this was in between updates, so none of that stuff went live. But so what we've decided to do was we basically have the root that is linked, and then we have basically branches, which will be like things for UI features and things like that.
Okay.
When we make changes, when the Neverwinter Foundry makes changes, we check our changes against Star Trek. So say we make a change to how the logic or quests work in the Foundry. Mm-hmm. That basically goes through how the logic for the Foundry puts things together and packages it and makes quests and all that stuff. Mm. We test that against Star Trek to make sure that, well, we're going to make a change to this core thing. Remember, we're talking about the roots. The roots of what the Foundry is, we're making a change to. So when we make that change and we know we're making it for Neverwinter, we also check it against Star Trek so that we know we don't break it. What that means, though, is that if we want Star Trek to have it, they could get it. So the good news is that recently I've talked to, I don't know their cool community names, but Dan and the lead producer.
D-Style and Gecko.
Yes, there you go. Those.
Yes.
No, Gecko is the designer, right?
Oh, sorry, yes, designer. Oh, gosh, I've completely blanked on producer.
No. I'm not going to say his real name because I don't know if you guys know his real name.
Is it?
No.
No, he's not a designer. I can't. Never mind.
It's okay.
We'll work it out.
Anyway,
someone will find it.
So if it's Dan,
Right.
we'll go with Dan and Gecko. So if D-Stall, we've actually talked, and he's like, hey, so there's all these things, and I want to sit down and talk to you about the stuff that we can get into the Foundry. So I said, that sounds great. It's an amount of time. It is some program time. It's most likely some UI time. And so we can just go over and look at all the stuff. And I've talked to the Neverwinter Foundry programmers who, like I said, are not a discrete asset, and asked them, hey, what would it take to do, X, Y, and Z to get Star Trek the stuff that they're interested in? And so we'll have discussions about that. So as far as features go and sort of adding features that are in Neverwinter to the Star Trek Foundry, it's just a matter of work and timing and effort. And some of it is scarier than others, but for the most part, none of it is absolutely terrifying, except for probably adding like interior editing.
Oh gosh, yes, that we know that's good. That would be a monumental task involving art and everyone else's cooperation as well. Yeah. we don't expect that for a long time. And
then as far as bug fixes, there is no, like I said, everybody is on deck. So if a bug comes in for STO specifically, I am the first one that says, oh, hey, let's crush that. Let's get that taken care of. There is no division of game or title or anything. Okay. If there's a bug and there's some stability things or anything, absolutely, it's all hands on deck to make sure that we address any issues with the Foundry in both games. When it's just the division comes when we start talking about additional features, and then it comes down to where Star Trek wants to take the Foundry, which is not a discussion that I'm always in.
Yeah.
But definitely I get roped in when D-Stall says, hey, I've been thinking about this. What do you think about this, and how can we do these things? But as far as support, and maintenance, and bug fixes, it's a shared effort of passionately shared effort to make sure that both games are always 100%.
Okay.
I hope that answers.
Yeah, it does. It really does. It actually explains things a lot better than we've really been able to get a hold of before. Sort of ties in bits of what we've heard and figured out ourselves. Yeah, that's good. So should we give you a list of the big show-stopping bugs?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have show-stopping bugs.
Yes, we have 4-minute load times. We have a workaround, but 4-minute load times. As soon as if you click on the details panel, or if you go into the costume editor, and basically any time you click on the right-hand panel and drag something in or use it, whenever you then go into preview a map, it takes 4 minutes once you've done that. You can bypass it by saving, exiting the Foundry, coming back in, then previewing, and then it will have a normal load time. Still a bit longer, but it's not huge. Yeah, that's it. There are a few posts about it on the STO forums, but that's a massive thing at the moment, I'm afraid. As I said, we have workarounds, but
So it's 4-minute load times dragging assets from the details?
Yeah, you drag it in, it's there, it's fine, and then you hit preview map, 4 minutes. It's odd, but it's completely fine. If the way there are 2 workarounds currently, you can either drag everything in, place it all down, save it, exit Foundry, reload the project, or you can
Whoa.
drag one in.
You're making my brain hurt.
You see the lengths that authors go to. It's fabulous.
I am an author.
I know. Yes, I know. You feel our pain.
Oh my goodness.
You feel our need.
I'm currently trying to build the interior of a guard tower in the exterior space.
I can see how difficult that would be in Neverwinter as well, because
I don't want it to be in a different map. I want you to be able to go into a guard tower in the same map. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We there's been some amazing builds, like we do it regularly in STO, but there are some fantastic builds in Star Trek Online, and there are some great ones in Neverwinter coming through now, but just the imagination, as I've always said with the Foundry, you can do anything you want to. It's all there, it's all possible. It just takes a lot of imagination sometimes. A lot of imagination and a lot of patience.
To that, one of the other things, I'm pinging back to the whole, what is the future of the Foundry thing. We definitely want to take a look at sort of some of the multiple and complex steps to do very simple things. You remember, so one of the things we added with Fury of the Feywild is that encounters can now drop items.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know that just sounds like it sounds like it should have been there from day one, but I don't know how many times because I have a quest where you've got to go get spider carapaces, and then you've got to bring it back to prove that you did. And so every time I have to go, basically rummage through a spider's nest, I've got to kill the spiders, and then I've got to go, I have to place an extra rock that is the clicky to give me the item to take it back. And it's like, so many things, right? And I have, there's multiple nests, and I have to get multiple carapaces, and there's only a single carapace per nest and all that stuff, obviously, because there's only a single spider in each one. And I have to duplicate that same thing over and over again, instead of just saying, when you kill spiders, they drop carapaces. And so it's simple, so many steps before, right now, oh my goodness, I've got sound that triggers when you interact with something, and it sets on fire and switches to a different version, so it looks like a burned version.
Yeah.
And I have to do that 5 times in a map. Oh my god. just being able to have just a few things, here's an object, and it plays the sound when you interact with it. And then it turns, just those, it should be simple, and we have to go through so much just to make what seems to be so simple. So that was something I sat the team down, and I was like, look guys, this is it. I've had it for you. I know you've given me a lot of tools, and I know you're like, here's a straw, here's a glass, it has a hole in one side, and there's a little bit of screen over there in the corner. I want you to make something awesome. I'm like, I just need you to just fill the glass and hand me the water.
And put the straw in it occasionally as well. Yeah.
Just because I'm thirsty. Next time, I promise. Next time I'll do it. So I want, I want to have a pass at making those very simple things that should be simple. And then, yes, there's complexity, but sometimes you just need to be simple. There's a huge, you guys know, there's a huge barrier to getting into the Foundry because of some of the complexity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a bit of an odd one because I love the complexity in a way. I love figuring out how to do things. That being said, it would be a lot simpler if some things were simpler. But
So part of that whole let's make it simpler thing, and then because we're talking about features a little bit for the Foundry, and we talked about, just to recap real quick, we talked about bosses, we talked about people we're interested in talking about PvP. I am absolutely, one of the things I'm pushing for 100%. Is for the author's ability to create a jumble of things and create their own groups.
So they're creating their own assets to be stored.
Yes.
For their purposes.
Right, and then creating personal library to be shared across projects. But then the extent of that, what I just call it internally libshare, because that's really what it is the ability to share your library. That is I think that is one of the old top requests. And I know everybody wants dragons and gelatinous cubes, but I think if they have the ability to create library pieces and then use them across their projects, that's already a good step. But the ability to say, yeah, no, totally, I'll make you that burning box that then plays the explosion sound and then does the thing, and I'll just make that library piece and then I'll just send it to you and you can just use it wherever you want. And just know that all of the interaction, the sound, the swap of the item, and the effects will all just going to play and work. I think that is, to me, that would be amazing. Because then I could ask my buddies, right, can you please make me a castle? And they can make me a castle and send it to me.
We've had that with STO, not supported so much, but the UGC export command to export maps.
Yes.
A community member made a tool to then pass that info, which we then took, and it was part of Starbase UGC where we would host it on a wiki and essentially we'd pass that output and have it all nice there. Did little trailers and everything for each asset. We had starships, we had cargo freighters, we had slave markets, we had everything, complete with Orion slave girls and their costume details. Yeah, right down to the very T. But then it would take about, it sped up the process, but it would still take 30 minutes to then go, okay, so this item goes there at these coordinates, and that one goes, oh no, damn it, I was working in Y relative to ground instead of Y relative to 0. Oh, damn it. That sort of emotion happened a lot.
That doesn't sound very fun.
It worked, but gosh,
Sure.
a real library share would just be incredible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we've been discussing. I think in the short term, long-term plans are sort of wide open for the Foundry.
Yeah.
But in the short term, I think improvements to the what we do and how we handle publishing and releasing new stuff, so that we are a little bit more protective of the author without the need of having to turn the editor off, but definitely they're more protective of the content changing that they've spent so much time in. And then making it easier to use the editor, and then make the creation of things much easier. One of the guys on the team wants to add templates so that you can basically have a drop down that says, like, I just want a 4-room dungeon with 2 contact dialogues. Then basically just it's a quick thing, and it basically fills it out. So then all you need to do is type in the stuff and then change some costumes. Because there's sometimes in your quest, it's just a cave full of bats. And, because you really want to take the time to make the other cool stuff. On occasion, you may just need to quickly populate a map. So you say, heavy population, 5-room dungeon, kobolds. And then, boop, there you go. And so we basically have that project almost like you would, with your UGC export, but you would just have these.
A lot simpler.
A lot simpler, like sort of, and they're not imports, they're just sort of.
They're already on the library.
Predefined tile sets, yeah. And then you just go editing away. And I think that would really sort of reduce that barrier for a lot of people to creating some sort of bigger things.
Oh, we're all for that. We're championing tutorials and all that jazz and everything. In the chat rooms we see people coming in every day saying, "Oh, how do you do this and this and this and this?" And to us it may be really simple, but then think back to how we began and oh yeah, I didn't know that once. Oh dear. And then we're still learning new things every day. When someone finds something really obscure and amazing, like because STO doesn't have teleporters or transporters in that case, people worked out how to potentially catapult people across the map, or you'd trap them, you'd set a respawn point, then when they're in different parts of the map, you would change the area around the respawn point, but then you would essentially trap the player in geometry, wherever they are. Then they would be returned to the respawn point, and they'd be in a completely new map, sort of thing. It's crazy what people will go and do, but it's all tribal knowledge.
Yeah, totally.
It's great. It's hilarious.
Hey, I have if you don't mind, I have a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
What would, this is sort of my first attempt to poll authors. What do you guys think of the idea of having seasons in the catalog? So it would be effectively come up with an amount of time and say, this is the season of, and give it a name. That's all the stuff that was made in that season, and then we move into season 2, which is different.
Right.
And then and people can make new stuff and give everybody a chance to sort of start fresh and get some new plays in there and new content.
How would
that work for Star Trek and Neverwinter in your opinion?
For Neverwinter, especially with the amount of content coming out, it would definitely be a good, possibly be a good idea for Neverwinter.
Definitely, possibly.
Yeah.
I can see the first issue that jumps into my mind would be things like people waiting right until that moment, then you'd have a flash flood of content. You'd have you'd say you announce the date 3 weeks in advance, and then everyone would just not publish for those 3 weeks, and then suddenly, oh wait, here we go, here's 2,000 quests.
Good point.
It would be a massive help in STO, I think, because we don't have the sheer volume that Neverwinter does. Mm-hmm. I mean, I looked at that infographic and God, the number of quests that are published, that's incredible.
Oh, Neverwinter?
Yeah, that's really incredible. But that's I think almost the same as it was in SCO, like 2 years down the line or something like that. That's just crazy.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, when we do a force republish, it's all of that.
Oh yeah. I dread to think what your engineers say when you go, so we need to republish several thousand missions. Computers please.
Yeah.
Time please. Fans for the computers. Make sure it doesn't die. Rent out another server farm.
Exactly.
It would be a cool idea, though. That's, that the seasons, that could work.
Yeah, it was something that we were thinking about, again, with the whole idea of people being able to find stuff. And then, I'm very sympathetic to the authors feeling like the stuff's never going to bubble up at the top. I know my quest is never going to get the play because it's not very good, but, but it kind of, it means something. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm never going to get the plays. I'm not going to be famous.
Such a shame to see people coming in really disheartened saying, oh, I've got 3-4 reviews, and at that point it's not even out of the review stage sort of thing, so it doesn't quite qualify for rewards, and it's a vicious circle and everything, and it's all... Yeah. My missions haven't really ever been found particularly. I've got a few hundred plays here and there, but I learned not to really mind. But it's such a shame for I build for myself. I make missions for myself, and if other people enjoy them, that's absolutely fantastic. But I make missions because I really enjoy making them, and other people are like that too. But other people, it's such a shame to then see people not getting the feedback they need or stuff. So yeah, and anything that you can think of to help struggling authors or new authors, that sort of thing, would be just fantastic. Even say a category for new authors. Like, this is the first mission they've published, or this is the second mission, that sort of thing. Being able to find new authors and give them the help, that's something I've thought about in the past. Yeah,
we have one of the things I pitched around, I talked to Craig about, and then the UI team was I would like to get a revamp for the catalog page to make it have it be like a landing page, like the home screen.
Okay, yeah.
And then actually because then what we do is that we have, each of those little, timeline things and all the big pictures and all that stuff could definitely be things like newest created, most played, brand new, follow this, hot artist, hot author, all of those things. And then we could have a lot more control about showing, giving people a different way that they could get their stuff out there. And of course, you hit a button and it just goes to the catalog. But that landing page could have a lot of things. I can imagine, just having a ticker on the right-hand side that just shows like the quests that have just been published, right? It's like brand new, and you just, oh my goodness, that's got a gold star next to it. Why wouldn't I click it? Boop, and then, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I always when I see people come up with the ideas now, I've come into the habit of thinking, oh wait, but that could be exploited. Oh no, we can never do it. We can never have nice things.
I think one of the things that could help is more incentive to review the new quests. But again, that comes up to that's easy to exploit.
I can always see it's a very fine line to walk. Pop-up dialogues. Oof. Yeah. I brought it the other day on the live stream and everything, but I know you said there was an issue. Just wanting, for one thing, we want to make sure they never go out of STO, because that would kind of break every mission ever. But also, I'm wondering why did it? What was it that actually really caused the issue? Why did it just go kaplooey, and why did you take judgment to take it out? And are you ever considering bringing them back in? Because I know that it might be a bit more difficult because contacts and dialogues and things are done very differently in Neverwinter than they are in STO. But I'm wondering if pop-up dialogues will ever be reintroduced at some point.
Yeah, I think the issue specifically that you're mentioning is that they were sort of just done in a hacky way that were sort of fragile. Yeah. To be honest, I totally made a call. Right? We had a list of features, and the team was like, pop-up dialogues. And I said, yeah, no, I know. They're there. And, I reviewed them, and I sat down, and we did a team review of them, and they're like, yeah, these are most likely going to be one of those things that just keep breaking every time, or just constantly. I said, well, okay, then that's not acceptable. And then there was, we were like, well, how can authors just get this anyway? And then I think in alpha didn't we have a way that we could do it, because the window that popped up when you interacted with an object was kind of like a contact window? And then, in that
changed.
Because
they were in there until fairly late alpha. Well, yeah. they were in there until the UI change.
Right.
And then they went.
So one of the designers that had an implementation for them, this is how they're going to work. And it essentially turned out to be float text. And I thought that wasn't what the authors were asking for. You actually wanted like a box, we'll call it physical, but anyways, a box to appear that told some story, that gave some reason why you were there. Not necessarily like walking through a thing and then having some float text or some big bar of text just stay on screen for 5 seconds or something.
Because we have float text anyway, anyway, as in flash across the screen.
Right.
To some extent.
So I've handled that with just with waypoint markers.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I didn't think that's what we needed. I was like, well, that's not what they need. I'm making a judgment there. So I was like, well, that's not what I need. I was like, I think what they're asking for is like, kind of a cool filigree box that they could put text in that sort of talks about the area or something.
Or just really, I suppose the biggest thing was that in SEO anyway, you can use it to take triggers off of, and you can have the whole advanced dialog tree anywhere rather than just having to go up to an NPC.
Right.
Because that's the janky thing at the moment, that you can't just have text appear, you have to go and talk to that NPC in Neverwinter.
Maybe we could talk to an object.
Well, yes, you can talk to an object, but you still have, you can't have something, I may be completely wrong, but you can't just have something that appears forcibly.
Right.
Once something's done.
Correct.
So basically you can't have someone shouting you over rather than just, you have to go and initiate a talk with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So the implementation of it was, I think, was a little bit. The design of it was a little bit loose, and then I thought that, and then we started discussing like it was going to go this way, and it was going to go, there was multiple ways that it can go. So I just sort of made a call and said, well, we're not going to get it. It seems because it's not going to. I don't think it's going to be float text, and I really like the idea of having a window, but you guys want you want to have. I remember now, like they're definitely saying no, but it's just going to be popped up, and I said that's great. Now, are all we're going to see are sort of these weird abusive quests where it's nothing but boxes in front of your face. And as soon as I said that, I realized there could be magical books that are flying in the player's face, and that's why there's all of these things covering up the screen. Anyways, like I said, there's always it totally makes sense, right? It's D&D, it's magic, there's all kinds of anything the player can think of wanting to play, we can make for them, and it makes sense in some way. So, and it totally
including the old style character creation options, NPC creation options, where you could create absolutely anything.
Oh, like you mean a Neverwinter?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When we had to trim those sliders down.
Yes.
We deprecated a lot of them. We basically just showed all of the dev sliders. And that was probably an oversight on my part that I shouldn't have let slid out. But anyways,
it became difficult to then create something looking good because you had so many options.
Yeah,
I think was what it came down to in the end. But anyway, sorry.
So yeah, we discussed it. I think it comes up, that same designer. Hey, so I've got an idea for how we're going to do this. So I don't think it's impossible. It's just one of those things that we just got to get in. It's fairly small, but I would want to see a design that sort of makes sense. But for the most part, it would probably be something that we put in that's really sort of in an alpha state. And I'd prefer to just get it out there and then on preview, definitely not something that goes to live, and just ask, say, is this what you want? And say, no, add a little bit of this, and this is what you want. Yeah, fine. And just sort of come at it from that angle. I think being able to trigger a box to pop up or some sort of dialogue or text to pop up, it isn't that hard. It's just something it's on our backlog, to use a silly developing term.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Well, this is the point where we turn it over to the developer to say anything that you want to say to the community or ask community for anything like that. The floor is yours.
Fury of the Feywild is out, and with it came a ton of really cool stuff for the Foundry, not only in the editor and changes there, but obviously we added a ton of assets, encounters, and costumes. But we hit a little bit of a snag, and it's something that caused us to pause, look at where we're at, and see how we can make it better. So with that being as it is, we're not really out of the woods yet, right? We have stuff that we kind of need your help on, and one of those things is there were some changes that went out to some assets, and while we're trying to get editing enabled again, if anybody has any feedback or things that happened or changed in their quests post patch, hop in. There's a thread on the preview forums for things that have changed that the devs need to investigate, basically, that I started. Hop over there, post the things, big or small, it doesn't even matter. The team is investigating all of it. And really, I think the biggest thing I can ask for is patience from the community. We're working really hard to figure out all the things that may have changed and get everything squared away. Any help that you guys can give us would be great. But other than that, you guys, the community's doing an amazing job. I really can't wait to see what they make with the new tools and the new stuff.
Is there any way that you want to say how people can find you or reach you or anything? Do you have...
The best place to reach me is no joke. I'm on the forums all the time. So if there's ever an issue or anything, you can make a thread and just, Robo, look at this now. just hit me up on the forums, make a new thread. If it's issues that need some investigation, I prefer the preview forums. I don't want to muddy up the Foundry forums. I know there's lots of people that are trying to get plays, trying to get information, some how-tos, and there's definitely some community stuff that's being handled and very well on the main Foundry forums. So on the preview forums, absolutely, big shout-outs to me. If you ever find a post that I've made, you go ahead and click my name, send me a PM with issues that you might have.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Always a blast hanging out and chatting.
Welcome to Primetime UGC's mini-mission review. This time we've chosen the latest spotlight and ventured over to the Klingon side to play Salvage by Shamrock Duck. It is a shorter mission than we usually tend to review, but it didn't really let up on the fighting from almost the first minute of actual gameplay. You pick up the mission and are told to meet an aide off the High Council chambers on Kronos, who sets it up and sends you on your way. Let's begin, as always, with story.
We won't give too much away with the story. The description reads, long-range scans show a derelict Borg cube drifting into Klingon space. The High Command has sent you to investigate and gather any salvageable technology. That's an exact description of the story, albeit there are a few twists and turns surrounding what's going on within the Borg cube. Otherwise, I have to say that the story is very light, and the mission is far more focused on combat. There are very few characters, and honestly not much of a detailed explanation for what's happening to the Borg cube and who is responsible, unless I missed something. However, there are a few nice moments of humor, particularly in the last few dialogues.
I have to agree with Kirkfat when it comes to the omission of details. We find out something strange is afoot, but are not given a hint as to the who and the why. Perhaps there will be a second part to the mission, but there should always be some closure to parts of the plot before moving to a part 2. We gave story 3 stars.
Now on to map design. Most of the maps were fairly stock, although the Borg interiors were interesting. I could tell that they had quite a bit of customization. Unfortunately, the generous use of smoke really obscured the set. I understand what the author was going for in terms of creating a spooky and dark set that added to the environment. However, I was tripping on all kinds of things and sometimes relying entirely on my map to know where to go, so it was a little frustrating. I think if the enemies had been more of a challenge, then the set design would have added to the fear factor. But, well, I'll save those comments for the difficulty section.
I don't have much to add but to say that I was blind during much of the interior sections. I did a lot of walking into walls, but the mini-map got me through.
We gave map design 3.5 stars. Now on to tech. Everything worked perfectly for me. The author shows a good grasp of the basics, and there was much attention to details such as the renaming of mobs and the actors. I had no issues with reach markers. It was very straightforward. My biggest issue with the tech relates to the reskinning of mobs, but again, that takes us into issues of difficulty.
But we gave tech 3 stars.
And here we are to difficulty.
I'll begin by saying that enemies were not very hard to defeat. The space battles were easier than the ground, at least for me. Maybe because the ground battles had a bit more action.
I want to say that I really understand what the author was going for, as far as making a Borg zombie mission and needing the NPCs to bite. I've done a similar mission, and I had to rely on the mobs that were easy just to get that biting effect. But in this mission, it wasn't just the ground enemies. The space enemies were also reskinned. I think I destroyed the Borg cube, for example, before I could fire a fourth torpedo, and I really felt like the first battle was being done for me. So all in all, this was a combat-focused mission with a light story, yet the combat was a little dull.
Difficulty came in at 2.5 stars. And that's going to do it for our review of Salvage by Shamrock Duck. Please go out and play it for yourselves, and keep playing and creating user-generated content. And this has been the mini-mission review on episode 27 of Primetime UGC.